Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. We've got another South by Southwest 2022 interview for you right now for the movie Linoleum. Colin, Jim, Ray, hello. Congratulations. I don't know how you made this movie work, but this is something else. I've never seen anything quite like it.
I think that's a compliment. I'll take it. Well, that's great. Yeah, it was definitely a journey, but now we're here, so we're all happy.
Yes. So, with a festival premiere, our audience likely will not know much about your movie just yet. So, Colin, will you do the honors and give us a brief description of Linoleum?
I sure will. Yeah, so it's a sci-fi dramedy, more sort of a family drama about this failing children's science TV show host played by Jim Gaffigan, who attempts to build a DIY rocket ship in his garage. Meanwhile, his wife is thinking he's insane, but she's also dealing with an entire sort of midlife crisis of her own. And all of this is sort of brought about when all these surreal events start occurring in their world.
So I was reading a little bit about how the genesis of the project wasn't super simple and that the script was written over the course of many years. So what would you say is the biggest difference between where the idea started and what we see in the final film?
Oh man, this is hard to answer without giving away a whole bunch of stuff in the movie. As you know, it sort of like evolves as the movie goes forward, where it's sort of there's a lot that happens. But the origin of the movie really started. I mean, it's really at its core, it's a love story between these two characters, and it was brought about originally by my sort of an examination of my grandfather and grandmother's relationship. They met when they were and started dating when they were 16 and were together until they passed away a few years ago. And sort of this looking at a couple's lives, like this sort of love story over the course of a lifetime. Yes, there's these sort of like sci-fi sprinkles and a bit of comedy here and there. Obviously, Jim Gaffigan is in it, but yeah, again, at its core, it's this love story, and it sort of evolved in that essentially my grandparents passed away during the making of the writing of the script, and so that moment sort of gave inspiration for I don't want to say the ending per se, but a lot of how the script ended up changing throughout was that process.
Also, really a beautiful depiction of that. So I can't congratulate you enough on it. Jim and Ray, many questions about signing on for this movie. First, tone and style is just so important to pulling this whole concept off. So, what were some of your biggest burning questions for Colin after reading the script for the first time?
We had many conversations about tone, and those continued with all three of us, and then separate conversations among two of us, or just constant talking about tone, because it is it's important in the film, but it also is malleable in some ways in the film. Jim and I talked a lot about playing the realism of each of these, I call them sort of fragmented snapshots of a life together, that you had to play the moment for what the moment was, while understanding the sort of magical realism element and the scope of how it's fitting into the whole. So we had questions about tone. I also had questions about logic. I wanted to make sure that I understood, so that I could bring to the piece whatever Colin needed to tell that story. And then the more I understood that he was more interested in us bringing three-dimensional characters to it and playing the love story than he was in us trying to be clever about the nonlinear storytelling, the more excited I got to get on board with that.
Yeah, I was really excited when I read the script, and there was a certain amount of you read a script and you're like, well, I hope that they're going about this in this manner. My interpretation is similar to how they would go about this, and as we talked more and more about it, Colin and I, and then Ray and I, it was really amazing, because it was even with things that I didn't imagine, it expanded kind of the scope of the weight of it. And you having seen the movie, it's like I talk about like the last 10 minutes, because it's not really the ending, it's the last 10 minutes. And there is something about that approach where I was shocked that like everyone was on the same page. Like when you get on a project, you're always ready for, oh, all right, so this guy wants me to do a silly Robin Williams voice now. Do you know what I mean? Or you get in a situation and someone wants to play the ending, or someone wants to play the absence of affection between a couple, when it's far more interesting that they do love each other. And so I was very excited, and it is kind of corny, but like we still enjoy talking about it. Like the same kind of energy we have now about this movie and these characters it's almost identical to our initial meeting and discussions about these characters and their relationships.
So how about meeting Colin in particular now and getting your first impressions of him? Because it is a second feature, it's not his first go around, but this is a mighty ambitious film. So what was it about his approach, maybe his past work, that gave you two the confidence that like, yes, this guy here can do it?
Well, I think for me, it's some of it's the script that was so good. And also, I didn't feel like when we were talking initially, he was yesing me, like there is also, look, this was during a time in the pandemic where people were coming a little bit out of hibernation to work. So there was an enthusiasm to work, but it was also one of those things where I was leaving my wife with 5 kids to work on this project. So it had to be something that made sense. But yeah, I think that like my first impression was this guy really cares a lot about this project, and no one's doing an indie film for any other purpose than they love the project and they love, executing a creative idea. But like, I knew that right away when I was talking to him that it was super ambitious. The final product is amazing. I didn't, I wasn't even sure that we were going to be able to finish the movie during the time. Like we tested every other day. Again, this is before vaccines. It was an indie. If we got shut down, that would have been it.
No movie.
There wasn't, oh, we'd have to replace the makeup person. The makeup person would have infected everyone. You know what I mean? So there was an excitement about even completing it.
Right.
That was amazing. So this is all gravy.
Yeah. We didn't even think we'd get this far.
Yeah, I would echo Jim's sentiment. Is script first. I just found it beautiful, and I found it incredibly ambitious. And then talking to Colin, we had long conversations prior to meeting in person. And Jim's right. I mean, it was I had to have a whole conversation with my family about leaving. I live in LA with my husband and my stepsons, and there was no vaccines then. And very few people were trying to shoot. And the ones that were doing big productions with bubbles. And my kids were super helpful where they were like, do it just like the NBA. And I was like, we don't have their money. And they were like, do it just like Tyler Perry did. I was like, we don't have that money either. Like we're not building a barracks to put us all. So we were like, well, how are we going to do this? And it was a little bit scary. And then we had this family environment and pulled it off and then some. But I knew I wanted to do it when I kept talking to my husband about it, and I kept talking to my reps about it. And then the conversations with Colin, he also wrote a beautiful letter talking about some of the personal experiences that had fueled some of it, but also some of the philosophy behind it, the questions that he was raising and wanted to raise discourse about. And when I called you and I said, I want your whole letter to be in the subtext of this script. And I'd love to try to help tell the story coming at it from that direction. And he is not a first-time director, but you're right, new or this is a very ambitious film. But I thought if he had what a friend of mine calls confident enough to collaborate, and that's Colin in a nutshell. Like definitely helms the ship and is a wonderful leader and has vision and wrote this and directed it. But you're also so accepting of someone else bringing something to the table and saying, like, whether it's art or it's camera or it's sound or it's an actor, you're quick to say, like, if this is helping the vision more or helping it move forward, then that's a yes. It doesn't have to be your idea, which was lovely.
Well, thanks for the kind words, guys. Yeah, I mean, I tend to look at actors as honestly like department heads, just like all the other department heads, the director of photography or the production designer, but they're the production head, or the department head for their own character. And I think in that way, it becomes just as collaborative of a process as working with your DP or the sound engineer or whatever. And not to make it technical, I'm not saying that, but it's a conversation. Like, if I come in there just demanding stuff, like, what's the point? What's the conversation? I mean, the whole point of making these things is to spark these conversations in the first place. And so I think there was a real joy in, like, the day-to-day examining of this film together as a group, because it's like it's sort of a conversation piece, and it's meant to kind of have that kind of an outcome. So I was thrilled to work with these two, both of whom worked beautiful individually and together. I think you guys have, like, such a chemistry that was like, that's nothing to do with me. They just kill it, and that just makes my job so much easier.
One of my favorite things to ask about is the value of a good scene partner, and that seems particularly important on a film like this. So, Jim and Ray, is there anything that the other did for you on the set of this film that proved invaluable to your own performance that you really appreciated?
No, I'm joking. Here's there's you work with people that don't want to overthink things, or and I don't think I'm overthinking things. Discussing beats and moments and relationships. Some people don't want to do that, and you have to respect that. But there is also, look, if we never discussed what we had, I think that we could have done something. But I think the collaboration and the enthusiasm to collaborate made the scenes fuller, and so it was very exciting to and the closer you get to someone, then it becomes a second
hand.
Talk.
You just have a conversation.
It's not and then you're not leaning into things. You can kind of just communicate. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you are. Yeah. And I mean, I feel the same. Like, there's definitely, you have to respect the process of people that don't want to talk about it and sort of break it down together. But I feel like, especially in limited time, there's a lot of bonding that happens when you do break it down. And Jim and I both really like script analysis and breaking things down in that manner. And it does, for me, and I found that Jim was the same way. It's not that takes the magic of the scene away. Some people think that if you're calling it overthinking is going to make it technical. And instead, I find it very freeing. And so does Jim. And then the icing on that cake is I have a pronounced respect for the way he's coming at his work. And he's feeling that mutual respect about mine. And now you feel safe to try things and to offer to be the other person's setup. If it's like, oh, we were also talking about that maybe it would be interesting if Cameron, in simplified language, becomes angry by the end of it. I'm ready to say, like, okay, how do I set that up for you? How do I make the arc, how do we get this snake to not force it and manipulate it, but like, I have to change course as well. But we wanted each other to try things. And so it makes for a safe space. And what happens is the takeaway is the audience sees texture between lines the whole time. That's the result of that. Is it looks like two people listening to each other because if you're going to hit your ball slightly to the left, then I'm going to catch it slightly to the left, and it keeps modulating that way.
Whatever the process was here, it worked really well. Everything came together so incredibly beautifully. I wish so badly we could reconnect when the movie comes out so we could talk spoilers, because I have a million and one questions about what this movie really is. But cannot recommend Linoleum enough. Huge congratulations to the three of you, and thank you for chatting with us about your movie.